I feel that the executive committee has been very progressive. I think this is the biggest decision that this organization's made in the last 15 years. Going back to the day when we made the decision to put our team sports into classifications. We've had public versus private competition committees studying this issue, and we've not done anything in 15 years. I'm not telling you that this is the right decision and it's the silver bullet that's going to solve competition, because it doesn't exist. But the reality is it's something, and we have the ability, after we go through it for 2 years, to tweak it and modify it. If we feel that the factor is too lenient, we can make it more stringent. If we feel that the factor is too stringent, we can relax it. But nonetheless, we've done something now to address success. And that's really what this whole conversation is about. You can talk about public versus private. That's one part of it. But I would contend that it's more than that. It's about resources. It's about available athletes. It's about socioeconomic statuses. And it's about a whole different variety of factors. But when you boil it down at the end of the day, it's about success. And so let's address success. And let's talk about who's winning these tournaments, and do these schools who are winning these tournaments in an inordinate amount of times, are they winning them because they have some type of an advantage? And if they do, then we're going to provide them an opportunity to experience success at what most people would say would be a higher level. If you believe the notion that dividing schools up by enrollment is fair because of the number of students, and the more enrollment you have, the tougher that competition is, then if you take success and you're experiencing a tremendous amount of success in a lower enrollment class, we're providing an opportunity for that school in that sport only to move up and experience success in a new environment. So I feel that the executive committee was extremely courageous and visionary in passing this, and we're going to see how it works. And I think it'll be interesting to see if it does create movement and what that movement will result in the subsequent 2 years, and what the tournaments will look like.
So I guess one thing that I've been hearing a little bit about is this isn't going to be like the original classification system that put in, where it's kind of there's room here to make some changes, and the IHSA isn't afraid to go one way or another if you see the need to
Right.
make it lenient.
I think the reality, Ross, is that the committee has demonstrated that they're willing to change. And when I took over 17 months ago, one of the things I talked about is that we need to be ready to change. We need to not be afraid to change. And we need to do it on behalf of student athletes and behalf of our membership. And our committee's demonstrated that. Well, you know, when we started floating this concept 3 or 4 years ago, we were calling it a competition clause. And somebody emailed me and said, well, what are you going to do with Ben Davis's girls basketball team? Are you going to put them in the Big Ten? And I responded by saying, no, because the Big Ten won't take them. They're too good. You're right. When you get to the top, the biggest class, and if you believe that the largest is the best, then you've reached the top of that tournament structure, and there's nowhere else to go. It is a proposal that affects smaller schools. The reality of our largest class, whether we're talking about basketball, baseball, volleyball, or softball, or we're talking about football, is there's a huge disparity from the bottom of the class to the top of the class in enrollment.
Obviously, there's some discrepancies there. If a team wins a state championship in the second year of a cycle, and then the first year of the other cycle, they're still going to be in class 2A or 3A
Sure.
or what have you for the next year.
Right.
Just talk about the thought process
Sure.
behind that and what all went into that decision.
Every 2-year period, the association reclasses and realigns schools in our team sport tournaments. And depending upon the movement of schools, whether their enrollment goes up or down, you may be in a different class. You may have different schools within your area that are in your same class. The notion of keeping the reclassification and realignment congruent with the success factor is that in some instances, a school may be playing in a totally different tournament than they did the previous 2 years, yet you would create a tradition factor that would span over 2 years, you'd have different results. That's really dramatic in the middle of the state. At some point in the middle of the state, in each of the 5 football classes we currently have, and soon to be 6, there's a line where schools will go north in the tournament trail or south in the tournament trail. And particularly for those schools in the middle, depending upon reclassification and realignment, your direction of tournament may change. You may go south, you may go north. Well, that's a totally different tournament, and if you're counting success in one tournament and another one, it just convolutes the whole issue. So our committee felt more comfortable with just taking the 2 years of that tournament series experience and saying, okay, what'd you do in that 2 years? Now you've moved up or you're staying where you're at. Next 2 years, here's what we're going to do in these tournaments. And if you scored 4 or 5 points in the next 2 years after moving up, you're going to stay in that class. If you score 3 or fewer points, you're going to move back if your enrollment allows you to move back. And if you scored 6 or more and you were in the class below the largest class again, you would move up again. And so I feel like the committee made a really good decision in that regard, because I think it needs to be congruent with the tournament series, those 2 years. Those are the schools you're playing each of the 2 years.